In this video, you will learn what people-pleasing is, why it's harmful, how I dealt with my own people-pleasing tendencies, and I want to just say now, be sure to watch the whole video because it's a really juicy topic. You're going to see exactly where this disease to please comes from and how to overcome it. So, I'm going to start by explaining what people-pleasing is in the first place. Cambridge Dictionary describes a people pleaser as the following: someone who cares a lot about whether other people like them and always wants others to approve of their actions. Why is it harmful? Well, people pleasing sounds initially as quite a positive thing because you're making someone happy. You're being subservient to others and being selfless, which are all things that society deems to be the making of a good person. But in reality, it's a completely toxic behaviour which enables others to treat you badly. By people pleasing, you disrespect yourself by constantly being put on the sidelines, and you sacrifice yourself, which can cause severe harm to your self-esteem. People-pleasing leaves us feeling powerless because if we have a need to be liked as opposed to a want to be liked, we will do anything to be liked, including acting like a doormat to other people who can exploit this need within us. Of course, we all want to be liked, but really question, do you need to be liked? Please tell me in the comments below what your relationship with wanting versus needing to be liked is, as I would be really interested to read about this. So the bottom line is that people don't respect people pleasers because people pleasers don't respect themselves. They push themselves into the shadows. And if this is a tendency you think is going unnoticed, you're completely wrong. The law of state transference tells us that how we feel about ourselves will be felt by others. Our state is literally transferred. Obviously, this isn't an absolute in all situations, but if we repeatedly disrespect ourselves through being so willing to please others, it's only a matter of time before people will take advantage of this. Because by having this need to be liked by them, you're giving them carte blanche to act however they please with literally no consequences. It's a disease to please, and is sadly something which affects women in particular due to social conditioning, and women tend to have their feelings minimized, disregarded and whatnot more. Although obviously men can suffer from this too, but unfortunately it is something that tends to affect women a lot more. So now I'm going to tell you a story about a time when I struggled quite a lot with people pleasing. A few years ago, I studied in Florida, Mexico, and immediately after in Spain. And throughout those years, I had some very challenging living situations, to say the least. When I moved to Madrid in 2014, I was determined to have a positive living situation because I had had them before, but then suddenly I was having a lot of bad experiences in succession, which I'm about to tell you about. But despite my highest hopes, I ended up moving in with a thief from Italy who stole from many people I was living with in the flat share, which meant I had to move. Then I lived with some really not very nice people in the next flat, and I thought after having a few different experiences that weren't very pleasant, with my next lot of flatmates, I thought I'm going to kill them with kindness and make them like me, and things are bound to go well. This did not work out, and in fact I lived with a pair of Americans, one of whom was a girl from New York, who really mistreated me and talked to me like I was a piece of crap and would be really passive aggressive towards me. And again, I thought I would be really smiley and try to get into her good books just for an easy life, even if eventually I ended up snapping because, you know, she was just treating me so badly. And so eventually I started to mirror her behaviour. Now, after a few months of her consistently saying that I wouldn't put up with her crap anymore, she started to treat me very differently and with more respect. It's very sad that some people perceive kindness as a weakness, but sadly, some people just don't like that and they take complete advantage of that. So now we're going to talk about where this behaviour comes from in the first place. So in Lawrence Kohlberg's Stages of Moral Development, which I definitely encourage you to look at, there is a stage which is known as the good boy, good girl orientation, which basically is where people want to receive social approval and be perceived as being a good person. So it's something I've heard a few times in my life where people will say, I'm a good person, or I'm not a bad person. It's something we're programmed to value highly and to protect, and getting stuck in this stage of moral development can come at a pretty hefty cost. So it's important to question, why am I feeling like I have to dismiss my feelings in the first place? And really take a look at where this behaviour originates and how you're going to tackle it. Most of the time, like most things, it starts in childhood. So if you're dismissed a lot, you tend to unconsciously learn that your feelings and opinions don't really matter, and that the other person's feelings matter more. And so you start to cater to pleasing them in order to gain their approval. And that's something as children that we really need. This is a pattern of behaviour that, when not questioned, will continue into adulthood. People pleasers often end up seeking out people who remind them of the person who didn't give approval in the first place and didn't value their feelings. So this means that this person's likely to end up meeting someone that isn't going to meet them again, and thus the cycle continues. So it's important to note, it's not however, if you have this people-pleasing tendency, it's not necessarily your parents' fault, because they were most likely doing the best job that they could. Years ago, for example, there was an attitude of children should be seen and not heard. So children learnt from a young age that their feelings didn't matter and that they needed to please their parents. Unfortunately, most people in society don't tend to do a lot of work on themselves, and they just roll with what they were taught from day one, which most of the time isn't perfect or anywhere near so. So if we learn that we don't matter and that other people's needs are more important than our own, we will become people pleasers and look for validation externally, which is a completely toxic pattern of behaviour. So if you do this, you're looking for connection in all the wrong ways, as any connection you will get from people pleasing is a connection in which you've checked out completely and you're showing up inauthentically merely to maintain some semblance of a connection. So if you learn that it's your job to make others happy, you subsequently think you must fix every problem and make others happy, and you feel guilty if you don't do that. There is a very big difference between being kind and being a people pleaser, and that's very important to take note of. So how can you stop this behaviour? We must interrupt this pattern by setting boundaries. We need to decide what's okay for us and what's not okay for us. Boundaries aren't so much about trying to force someone to behave the way we want them to, but it's more about knowing what we're willing to tolerate and what we aren't, and walking away if someone repeatedly violates those boundaries or flat out refuses to respect them and treat us how we want to be treated and deserve to be treated. Some hurdles you may face. So boundaries are so crucial, but I must warn you, you may not see immediate results by changing this behaviour. So it's very important to have faith and to be patient when tackling this. And if you've been doing this for a long time, it may take some time to weed out all of the people who don't belong and possibly never did belong in your life. So once again, it's really important to be patient, as leveling up can be a painful process and you may not take everyone with you to the next level. But I promise you that it's worth it. What you tolerate on the outside sends messages to your subconscious mind about your self-worth. And so that's why it's really important to monitor this behaviour, as it is very, very damaging to one's self-esteem. So some important things to remember are to ask yourself, do you like the person you're looking for approval from in the first place? You may not, and so you need to ask, is their opinion of you important in the first place? You know, it's important to note that not everything is your responsibility or due to you. We all have patterns of behaviour that sometimes clash, but it's really important to know that sometimes you should speak up for yourself. You should disagree, and you should speak your truth. Just because someone may not take responsibility or be honest does not mean your perception is necessarily off. Do not tolerate people treating you badly, and certainly never try to gain approval from others or please others who are treating you like a sack of crap. So please remember, if the person will discard you for simply speaking your truth, you need to ask yourself, do you want this person in your life anyway? Please write in the comments and let me know what you've learned from this video. I would also love it if you would like it, subscribe and share it, as I'm really trying to grow this channel and your help would mean so much to me. And I will see you on the flip side. Ciao for now.